Well, hello and welcome everybody to season 2 of the Dallas Film Podcast, brought to you by Southside Studios Dallas, our newly remodeled sound stages in Dallas that we're super excited for everybody to come and film at. So we took a little break there through the holidays and for everybody to catch a little bit of breath. But now we're excited to be back and excited to have Rebekah Smith, the film festival doctor, with us today.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. Welcome.
Welcome. Yes, it's so nice to see you again.
I know. Great to see you as well. I just saw you last night. You know, we were just chit-chatting before we started recording here about the grand opening for Southside Studios last night, which was crazy. We had so many people there. It was a lot of fun. So we're excited to get those stages online and production coming there. And so you were at the event last night. What did you think about it?
I really enjoyed it. I mean, I think, to be honest, that is the biggest event I've attended with the most amount of people in Dallas since I moved here. And I've been to a lot of events here, all the festivals here, but there were so many people. You must have had like thousands and thousands, because everywhere was like rammed with people, like for the whole night, from like when I got there at 6:30 till when I left around 9. So there was a lot of new people to connect with in all different kind of industries, which is also really fun to see more of other Dallas creative sides coming together into the studio.
Yeah, I think it was close to 3,000 people. It went a little bit viral, honestly. Like people just started texting each other apparently and saying, "Are you going to this?" And then people had serious FOMO if they weren't. And so everybody showed up. I think, like you said, it was like you had artists and you had filmmakers and producers and production crew, and we had one woman that flew in from Atlanta who's a talent manager and a producer, and we had people coming from across the state. So it became a thing. It was great though.
Yeah, I also like the colors, for like, as you've got the colors on each studio with the name of the number of each one is nice, because it really stands out and pops out the studio with the colors you've got for number 1, 2, and 3. I think it was like lilac or pinky kind of color, like my top I've got on now for one of them, which was super nice. So it's nice and, a bit more extra glam with nice colors and not like too, all black.
Yeah.
There's a nice edge to the colors.
Yeah, and I think having Cinelise as a partner at the studio there to provide all the lighting and the grip, and they did a great job of lighting up the stages last night and making them look nice, and then the bar and everything. So yeah, it was fun. We certainly had a good time, and now looking forward to seeing what we can bring to Dallas.
Yeah, plenty of stuff.
So Rebekah, why don't you introduce yourself? So we're chatting here, but no one knows who you are or what you do, other than that I called you the film festival doctor. Do you have a PhD, or are you an MD in film festivals? How's that work?
So I do have a PhD. I have a PhD in film and audience research, and my PhD thesis was on Tarantino. There's a Pulp Fiction in the background poster, looking at how his fans respond to his films emotionally, looking at new research in that area. But I didn't go down the path of academia. Instead, I went down the path of film festivals, because I got asked to produce a film festival during the time I did the PhD. And then it was there, I found a gap in the market. There was nobody really at that time, not really much of us now, helping people get their films seen in film festivals and being a festival strategist. So there was a gap in the market. So I wanted to fill it because I had that experience. I was learning, and I thought, I want to do this because there's a real big gap and people need this, because people need that consultancy. And that's when the film festival doctor was born in 2010.
Okay, yeah. So I was going to ask when you started, because I know, I've worked with you for many years with Sunscreen Film Festival, and I was trying to go back and be like, how many years has it been that I've known you? And because you were based in the UK for obviously for a long time, that accent is not Alabama. That's not an Alabama accent that you have.
No, it's kind of still a bit of British in there. It's kind of got a southern twang. Someone said, "Oh, you sound much cooler now. You've moved to Texas." Like, oh, thank you. Question mark. But it's still a bit there, but it's got a bit of a twang coming in there because I've been here since 2021. Okay. And yes, I was in the UK. So I set the business up when I was based in the UK. I was born and raised in the UK. And then I was moving around the UK, and then I moved to London to get the business really off the ground, because in Wales, where I was based at the time, it's a very small film industry. It's very tiny. And to really get it noticed what the service was about, making more connections, was moving to London, the big smoke, as we call it over there.
The big smoke, the big smoke, is that what you call it in London?
The big smoke.
Is that because of the fire many, many, many years ago, or why the big smoke?
Because it's a bit dirty. Okay. When you go to the center of London, it's not the cleanest place. It's just a lot of industrial there, so we call it the big smoke, because it's all got lots of lots of
It's not.
Ashlands.
I mean, I guess I could see that to a certain extent, but it's still far cleaner than New York. Like,
Yes, it is. It is cleaner than New York. It's got a great vibe like New York, but it is cleaner than New York for sure. It's
I
definitely,
personally love London. I think London's a great city.
yeah,
Much,
that's fantastic.
if someone said New York or London, London all day long. Like, nah,
Yeah.
give or take New York, but fine. I'll get criticism for that, but no, London all the way.
London has got just a great energy about it. It has. Like when you're in Soho, it's like a little village because everyone knows each other. Every time you go to, say, like the Curls in Soho, or you go to Groucho, you go to Soho House, everyone knows each other there. It's really like close-knit community, and you always see filmmakers there, and it's really nice. And there's loads of great festivals around the UK, but lots in London. Obviously, BFI London Film Festival is one of the biggest, and Raindance.
Yeah.
Lots of other ones there, London Short Film Festival. They're all like, everyone's close-knit, and it's a lovely kind of family feel. And the energy is always high. It's always a great energy. And it feels easy to get around because it is obviously smaller than New York.
Yeah.
But it's got a great, underground tube system, which other cities don't always have, especially around the US. So it's got a lot of stuff going for it even now. And then even the shops, like Fortnum and Mason, I think you went there, didn't you, when you were there recently?
Yeah. I also went to, there was a 007 James Bond pop-up bar that was amazing. And it was, the company that does the 007 films was the one, it was like they had put it on. So I just sat in there and had a couple martinis, and that was fun just to do that. So
that's fun. I think that's London.
Yeah, that's London. It was great. So take me back a little bit to the origins of the Film Festival Doctor. So it's 2010. Someone asked you to help produce a film festival. How does that, walk me through a little bit about how does that turn into being like a film festival consultant?
Yeah. So when I was doing the PhD, a friend of mine who actually knew from Worcestershire, he used to run a theatre, was actually working in Aberystwyth, where I was based, in the University Theatre. And he said, I've been asked to put on a horror film festival by the Film Council of Wales. And he said, just trying out how this is going to work, but would you want to help out? And I was like, yes, because this is a nice distraction from a very intense PhD. And then that distraction became like, this is my true calling. This is what I love doing. I loved producing the festival, like organizing the budget, getting all the guests looked after, programming the films. It was so much fun. It was like, it wasn't say the easiest work when you have to program stuff and a few things you got to do and iron out with money, but the usual things. But it was fun. And I thought, this is what I want to be doing, not really academia full time. And then I'm really sociable at festivals, and you have to be in a way. But I was talking to filmmakers, and I said to them, what do you like and dislike about film festivals? I'm doing a bit of research here because this is a new kind of area for me, but also want to know what your thinking is, your guests here. And they all said, we love film festivals. We love going to festivals, meeting new people, connecting, winning awards, having fun, getting drunk. All that is great. Seeing our film.
I like how you just glossed over having fun, getting drunk, winning awards. Like it all ties together.
The whole thing is a big mismatch. They were saying very much that they really felt they were good places to network and have fun and see their film on big screen. And they said, what we hate is that we don't know what we're doing. We don't know who to turn to or to help get our films into festivals. Back in the day when I was doing this research, the platform people used was called Without a Box.
Oh, yes, I know.
Without a Box with sunscreen.
Yeah, very much.
I had to use Without a Box and send you DVDs in 2011, 2012.
Oh, I know. I do not miss the days of literally having stacks and stacks of DVDs that would be handed out amongst our screeners and the board members and be like, okay, here's your stack of 15. You give this to this person, and you're tracking on Excel spreadsheets just to be able to kind of know where everything's going. Just a total nightmare in the early days of running film festivals, pre-digital age, just to be able to collect everything. And people would submit their film, but then not send a DVD for you to actually watch and rate the film. And so then you're having to follow up and be like, will you send us your screener, please? You paid your money for the submission fee. If you would send us a screener, we'd like to watch it. Just a crazy, bizarre, way that the business has changed over the last, 20 years or so.
Right. Yeah, no, it was, as you say, it was a nightmare. I remember the day when I'd have to keep going to the post office and then ship these DVDs. And after some of them would get lost, but it would just be annoying. Obviously, that doesn't happen now, but it was just annoying. And they all said that, there's nobody really able to help us, figure out what festivals to send the film to. We're just hoping for the best and seeing what happens on Without a Box. I was like, oh, and they all said that. Everyone was talking about they needed some guidance on what to do on the festival circuit because it was getting a bit overwhelming because more festivals kept coming up and there was more and more, emerging from the woodwork. And there's thousands and thousands of them. Back then there wasn't as many, but it was still overwhelming.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm going to set up a company that's going to help people do this. Are there anybody like me? And I did some research, and at that time it's like 09, 2010 kind of time, there was a company who I believe don't operate anymore called Film Festival Secrets. Okay. And he is a lovely guy. And I met one of his colleagues in a festival once, but he has a book out, that talks about how to strategize. But it wasn't very well developed at that time. It was a little bit like, on the side and wasn't a big thing. So I thought there's great stuff here to develop in this business model. And that was when my company was born. So someone said, oh, what about the name? So I said, I'm going to call it the Film Doctor. And someone was like, don't like that. I was like, why not? And then he said, well, first of all, there's also a blog at that time of the year. There's a blog called The Film Doctor. So you might get confused with that, but also make it clear what you do. Mm-hmm. So I remember sleeping on that. And I was like, oh, I'm going to call it the Film Festival Doctor. And the reason why I'm going to call it that is because I am a doctor, I have a PhD, and I'll also be helping people what doctors do, but let's make it specific with the festival because people come to me about festival help, not anything else like, post-production issues, because I'm not a post-production supervisor, for example, or like a script editor. But that's what
if you could tell those same things to people about film commissions. I'm no longer a film commissioner, but that would certainly help. And Katie, who is the Dallas Film Commissioner, sitting right over there, is cheering because they do think that film commissions do everything. But I digress. Go ahead.
So that's how it got set up, and then we set up the logo. My logo is very distinctive on my brand, and we made it clear that it was like female-run company, and I put the film element into it to make it like a really strong logo. Then I got funding. I got £1,000 funding from the Welsh Education Board. Okay. Because it was for like niche business only, and they were like, "Wow, what's this?" And I said, "Well, no one really does this right now. It's very under the radar. There might be people doing it, but it's not public. So it's it's a very new thing, and no one knows what it is." So he was like, "Okay, well, here's £1,000. Set up your website and your logo." And that back in the day was for a lot of money to do that. So, so that was how I got my startup funding. And they see it now and they're so proud to see how well it's grown.
They're like, look what we helped to create.
They're like,
well, how did those early years go then? So, you would have basically then had to start attending film festivals to meet the filmmakers and say, hey, here is what I'm doing. Here's my new company. I can help you get into other film festivals. And you were just getting started, right? You had just really helped do one film festival at that point. And so you were figuring it out on the way yourself.
I was. So it was really tough because it was having to convince people that this model could work. So I did take on a couple of films that were maybe not the best films in the world, but I had to prove it was going to work. And it did work by getting the results for them. So I was going to festivals and explaining what I did and who I am. And people were like, what is this? So it was having to educate a lot of people, pretty much everyone I met back in that time, to say that, if you need help getting your film into festivals, this is what I do. And they're like, oh, that's very specific, but also maybe we need this. It was all a bit foreign. A lot of people would think I'd be a sales agent. I said, no, I don't sell films. I get films into film festivals. And they would still find that like a little bit confusing. So I had to make the message very clear in my branding and my website. And that took a lot of trial and error. And I was finding like new ways to do that through feedback from people that met me and also feedback on my business plan. One of the things I remember writing my business plan, because I didn't know what that was, because I wasn't trained in business. I was trained in, film and audience research. So it wasn't like any business courses, but I learned that on the job and with other business mentors. One thing I did was write in there, in the business plan, that I wanted this service to go from being perceived as this like luxury service, having like a festival strategist on your side, but an in-demand service, and that every single filmmaker must have on their team and distribution plan a festival consultant. And that has now happened, which I'm very proud of, because it took a lot of work to do that by having to convince people it would work. So someone told me is that you're going to have to work for free in the beginning. You can't charge until you can prove it, which I had to do. And then more connections were made through the festivals I went to with them, Abattoir Festival that I was programming, And also I was meeting new people in London, going to every London festival. I was at every single networking event known to man.
Yeah.
I would go to Cannes. I would go to Berlin. I would go to AFM.
Yes, I know. I've seen you in Cannes. I feel like every year since 2013, since I started going. So you have to.
That's right. Yeah, my first Cannes was 2010.
Okay.
And it was there where I got like lots of great feedback. So it was really useful getting the feedback from people, knowing who I could trust and who I couldn't, and knowing which festivals.
Well, that's a big thing in this industry because there's a lot of people not to trust.
Yes. So it was quite a learning curve. So I grew as a businesswoman really quickly over those years. And I learned many things as not to take business personally, and also how to separate myself from the client's film and the festivals in the middle, how to separate that and just be neutral. That still takes time because it's still a hard thing to do, but I've learned a lot since I began the business. So it was a hell of a lot of dedication. I dedicated my whole life to it, and I still do that now. To make it work and to be the go-to festival strategist. And I'm, one of the go-to people. I'm also pleased that, like in the UK at least, a lot of filmmakers started to use the phrase, oh, maybe you need a festival doctor.
Yeah.
I bet, yes, that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Well, and then, so you mentioned, a minute ago about how people would think that you were a sales agent. And I could definitely see, because the purpose that a lot of filmmakers have of getting their film into a festival is because they want distribution and they want sales for it. And so do you still get today people asking you, it's like, okay, you're getting me into a festival, okay, you've made it clear that you're not a sales agent, but can you help me find a sales agent? So are you doing anything on that side of it as well, where you're connecting filmmakers with sales agents as a part of sort of getting into festivals as well?
I am. There was at one point during the business, I thought I could do sales, but actually, you know what? No, this is a whole new separate job, a new set of connections and a whole new different world. So what I did do is on my festival journeys, I met two people who were sales consultants and they help people find sales agents, basically. So a lot of times filmmakers will say, really want to do the festival circuit. I really need distribution or a sales agent. And that's, I want to sell this thing. So what we do then when we have that question is I refer them to those people who can then help them with the right answer to their questions and provide that service. I'm pretty clear now with people knowing what I can and can't do. So when they want PR, when they want sales distribution, when they want marketing, I have people on my affiliates list I can refer them to do that job for them. Yeah,
and that's smart. And it's smart to be focused because, and I figured you did, years ago, like you said, try to do the sales thing, and you can't do both. Like it's impossible. It's either one or the other because there's so much work to do with either one that you're not fully dedicating to what you wanted to do. If you're trying to sell people's movies, well, then you're not really dedicated to trying to get them into festivals. And so there's that whole kind of balance there. And so you started in 2010 and you start to grow through the years. What year do you think was it that did you have to have any side gigs, like along the way? You're like, I'm also, waiting tables here while I'm doing this or whatever it might be. Cause in startup businesses, that happens a lot where you're like £1,000, which is great for your website and logo, does not pay the mortgage or the rent for a long time. So kind of what were you doing as you grew through it? And at what year was it when you kind of made that transition and be like, oh, I can do this now without having any other side gigs? How did that work for you?
Yeah, so that's what I had to do. So when I moved to London, I had a part-time job as a personal assistant because that was my background. When I went to academia, I was a PA for a lot of corporate companies. So I had that skill set. So I was like, I can just be a PA to anybody and I can just do that. So I did that as a part-time job for a guy who ran an mining company in London, which was interesting. So that was a fun job on the side. It was just nice to get the money. It was part-time. It was easy hours, really good. And then I started to there'd be times when I'd be in his office and then I'd be like, stuff would come into the business. It started to get more inquiries and was busy. It was just me at the time. It was just literally just me. I was like, oh, I need to delegate now because I think it's starting to get busier and to try and make a bit of a system here that's more than just having to be me because it's getting really stressful if not. So I was still in that part-time job and I was there for 2 years. And then by 2013, I had to just dedicate myself to the business because I could afford to do it by then because I was getting a lot more work in that was sustainable at that time. I was in a very small basement flat in London, in southeast London and near Peckham. So it was not where the Ritz is, But it was fine. And the woman who put me up there, she was wonderful. Her film was at the festival I worked at, Abattoir. And she said, I've got like a basement flat, do we call it over there? And I was like, that would be good for me. And it was really good rent at that time. So I could afford to do quite a lot because it was a different economy then. But I knew I had to stop because I was getting work in and people were paying, and it was enough for me to pay rent and bills and also do what I needed to do. But it was having to work like 24/7.
Yeah.
It was working 60 hours like a week kind of thing. I
Sure.
still that kind of now because we're busy, but I mean, it was just me, and it was a lot to the point where it was burnout.
Yeah.
And then I got more people on board. I got an assistant, and that was Victoria in 2014.
Okay. So it was really 4 years from, starting to being able to be on your own and then to be able to have to bring somebody on board. And I think that's probably, to give everybody their parental lesson for the day is, put in the work and don't stop and keep, grinding along until you get to a certain point where you can, continue to work and make things happen.
Exactly.
And then you can make that transition into doing it without having to have the assistant job for the mining company guy.
Yeah. I mean, you have to really want to do what you want to do with your own business. You really got to love it and have a passion for it and be very disciplined and focused. I am always very disciplined in everything I do, whether I'm going to be doing it for a business or for a client. It's never cutting corners or like half into it. You have to be very committed to see it through to the very end. And that is a big lesson in film, because sometimes people think they want to produce a film maybe, but they don't want to do that role. So it gives you a good test running your own business because it's a lot of work. You have to delegate where you can, but you really need to be invested in it, and it's your heart and soul to actually see it through and grow a business from nothing to an established brand.
Yeah, and the film festival world has changed a lot, like we talked about a little earlier. And so I think it was probably right around 2014 or so when Film Freeway came into existence. There were some other smaller, like European-based film festival submission platforms, and there still are. But Film Freeway came along, and they took this, to describe to people what it used to be like. Without a Box was this super clunky, web-based platform where you would upload your information and submit to film festivals. From the festival side, there were barriers to entry in that I think there was like an initial $500 you had to pay just to set up your account. And, Without a Box kept their percentages. And most of the film festivals around the world used Without a Box, but it was super clunky and kind of difficult. And so there were a lot of festivals, but not as many as there are now because of that. And I think, Film Freeway comes along, and now it's this platform where it's a nice, clean, much easier to use, simple interface. And people start flocking to that. And like when Sunscreen, when that came along, we started using Film Freeway and Without a Box. And then you would see, then you saw this gradual over the years, one was started growing and the other, they both start here, and then it starts going like this, where Film Freeway now starts getting everything. And it got to the point, actually, Amazon bought Without a Box. So Amazon was owned by Without a Box, and they made it so that if you submitted a film to a festival on Without a Box, it automatically connected to IMDb, and so you could get films automatically onto IMDb, because that was always a tough thing to do, was get your films onto IMDb. And so, one of the tricks that I did back in the day is like I had a whole bunch of old short films from years earlier that I wasn't going to submit to film festivals or do anything with, or just a whole bunch of projects. I just put them into Without a Box and then just submitted them to my own film festival, but didn't accept them into the festival, didn't play them at all, but so that they could all get listed on IMDb. And so it was a way to like build your IMDb credits by saying, hey, these are projects that I did, but nobody knows that I did them, and they can get out there. And so here, how can I get them onto IMDb? And that was a strategy, 15, 12 years ago that, I think I probably wasn't the only one doing that, to try and build that IMDb listing. And then once Film Freeway starts taking off, and Film Freeway is free for festivals to, put themselves on there and create, I think then the number of film festivals exploded. And IMDb says now that they have something like 14,000 film festivals on IMDb. And, Without a Box went away and doesn't exist anymore. And so now that, with the Film Freeway is the main platform, and there's 14,000 film festivals out there, how do you, trying to navigate these 14,000 film festivals, decide or help decide what festivals are good to send your clients' films to? Because you're going to have different levels of clientele. You can look at a film and I guess it's two questions. How do you decide what films? How do you have a conversation with the filmmaker who says, I want my film in Sundance? And you can look at them and say, your film will never get into Sundance. And so let's not just throw this $100 in the garbage can, because that's essentially what it is.
So the way that we do it is, before doing any submissions, the golden rule is you always need to have a streamlined and focused strategy that contains the right kinds of festivals for your film. And the place we have to start is always the film. So when a prospective client comes to me and says, I want to get my film seen at these types of festivals and I want to achieve these goals, that's good for me to know. Then we have to watch the film to see if both will match, if the film can help those goals to get achieved. If it's not going to get what those goals to achieve, or it's not going to get what the filmmaker wants, there'll be a different type of festival strategy. We're very honest about that and upfront, because you really nowadays need to have a strategy that is really precise for the film and really taps into all angles of the film that can get it the best results in the circuit. Because if you go too general and broad, you get loads of rejections. So, for example, a client came to me and he had a very good short film. It was very well made. It was shot in London. It was a really powerful piece of work. But he said, I'm not getting anywhere with it. And I said, I can see why, because he's been submitting to like all the general festivals. What I mean by that is they have features and shorts and VR, for example, and other bits and bobs, and and other kinds of films and episodics. They're not focused, and none of these festivals are focused on short films. We can still aim high, like BAFTA qualified festivals and Oscar qualified festivals. We need to really make sure we tap into the short market. This is where the audience is for this kind of film. And he was like, okay. So did another batch of submissions and focused on that. And it got into quite a few, and it did really well because it was more targeted. And you have to be like that now. Doing like the spray and pray or submit and see is a recipe for disaster, because you need to know your film and know your festivals nowadays. That's so important.
Well, and I think knowing your film is part of the challenge too, right? Like the number of filmmakers that believe that what they've created is the greatest film in the history of mankind is never ending. How do you have those conversations with filmmakers, and what's their response sometimes? I imagine it's kind of across the board.
So challenge is a really good word, because that is the challenge. Because if a filmmaker is very emotionally attached to the film and they can't detach and see it as a product, that what the festival circuit looks for are products, content they look for, the types of products, that becomes very difficult because they can't see the feedback or hear it in the way that they need to progress and grow as a filmmaker. So it's a mixed bag. So what I normally do when it's a film that is good but not great, we always talk about the strengths and then mention the parts that will struggle getting into the top tier festivals to level up with their career. The other one, for example, if it's really strong, then obviously different type of feedback. One that is not very good, that is subpar, will really bring out the, what it's trying to do, and that's a good intention, and that there is something here that you could progress and grow, but not with this film for the top tier. Mm-hmm. So we're honest, but we give I think it's very detailed and constructive feedback. It's not just saying this is not very good.
Yeah.
It's really explaining why it would be difficult certain festivals, and also why it's good, and like giving it, a full kind of 360 kind of approach to the analysis. So I'm very good at that. And some people take it really well. There was a film I did an analysis of the other day, and he said, oh, this is great. I mean, I didn't notice any of this. And I was like, okay, that's good. We can work on this. And then the other one said, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. I was like, oh, okay. But I was like, I said, what I do when I give the feedback is I give a context to the email, and I say, remember, this is all designed to help you. Take some time to read, process, and digest the comments, and take a bit of time out from the film, and then come back to it. And the ones that do that most of the time will be like, okay, great. And then they take time away. But then the ones who reply immediately after reading it, full of emotion and anger, is not good.
Sure. Well, because you're not telling someone you're not giving someone a critique of their film. You're giving someone a critique of why it can or can't get into certain film festivals and what the level of film festivals are. And so it's not like you're saying these things are bad in your film or these things are good in your film. These are the elements that film festivals are looking for at these different levels, and what your film may or may not have that will enable them to get in or not get in these festivals.
Exactly. Because I always say this is coming from the perspective and the lens of a film festival programmer, because that's my background and my colleague Sheila's background as well, when we do the analysis together. And I always have to say that, a sales agent might think this is wonderful to sell, might be super easy to sell, but festivals are different kettle of fish. People have this phrase where they say it's a festival film.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's not always the case, because they think it'll be, Sundance, Cannes, and Berlin, when it might not be that level. It will be maybe good at other types of festivals, maybe more stronger regional ones, or, maybe ones focused on a certain genre, like horror, if it's a horror film, for example. There's many different kind of layers and aspects to it. So that's why with my feedback, it's coming from that one perspective. And as again, you're right, we're being very helpful. We're trying to help them here and help them grow as a filmmaker. And I always say, we're on your side. It might not sound like it if it's not what you want to hear, but also what can get in the way, can be a barrier to this, is a lot of filmmakers will believe what they hear from a cast and crew screening, and all the friends and family say that it is fantastic. I said, look, they might have enjoyed it, and that's great. That's good they enjoyed it. But the thing is, they're not film festival programmers, and that's dangerous. I had one client who said, this producer said we should aim really high. I went, no, not at all. I appreciate what he's saying and he wants to help you, but he doesn't know the festival circuit. He knows how to produce a film, but he doesn't do festivals. And it's a very complex field that needs very specific advice and is very nuanced. And then she said, oh, okay. She wasn't quite understanding it, because when people tell you what you want to hear, they might be paying you for that or whatever. It will probably be, not when someone says it's the opposite, it's not always well regarded. The secret is letting go and detaching emotionally. It is a lot, as you know. It's very hard to make a film. A lot of passion goes into it, a lot of work. But the more you can distance yourself from it and then see it as a finished product, like when you go into a shop and buy, maybe a DVD or HD, whatever it might be nowadays, or whatever you might do, or you go into a shop and buy like even a carton of milk. It's a product, and that's what it is. The process of making a film is like hard work, and it's like a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. But the product's a different kettle of fish. How it's received around the world is not what you might expect, but it is a different thing. So the more you can remove any kind of attachment or expectation on the festival circuit to the film, the more chance you have of success. And letting go and trusting the process is really huge with festivals.
Yeah, and I think that's really important because, there's a wide variety of filmmakers out there, whether it's short films or feature films. Somebody is starting out and they've made their first or second or third short film or whatever it might be. A lot of times they're just not very good. And filmmakers a lot of times will recognize that. They're like, I know this is, a new effort, but you have to do those to grow, to make better and better ones. And so there's a place for all of those films. My first feature film 21 years ago, was this super low budget $6,000 feature film that, I don't want anyone to ever see. And we're very well aware of what it was. And the cast and crew screening was great. Everybody loved it and had a good time, but it is what it is. And, so I'm not going to submit that thing to Sundance back in the day or whatever it might be. And so, what do you do then? Do you determine, you've got different tiers of festivals here. Like, here's tier 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. If like you're a brand new filmmaker and you're starting out, they shouldn't be discouraged and say, I'm not going to get into any festivals because my film's not very good. There's still a place for them because there are a lot of, small festivals in areas around the country and festivals that are first or second year. Those new festivals, you're not getting an established filmmaker sending something to a first year film festival because they know a first year film festival is not going to be the same as, what other festivals they can get into.
Exactly. So I like to say it all in tiers. People don't always use that phrase, but I love the way to say it is tiers. So tier 1 is the top 5. Everyone's probably heard of these. So Sundance, Cannes, Berlin, Venice, and Toronto, aka TIFF. They're the big 5. They're what we call launchpad film festivals, where you'd launch a feature and also maybe even launch a short film, but definitely like for a feature film, that's a place people like to launch it to help set a sales price and get that big premiere before it gets a release, around the world or in a certain country. Tier 2 are the ones which I perceive to be Oscar, BAFTA, and what we also call BIFA qualified in the UK, that are those types of Lebanon tour festivals, such as Holly Short, CineQuest, in the Palace, for example, and Norwich Film Festival in the UK, which is BAFTA qualified, that are festivals which will help short filmmakers and also some feature filmmakers help get the film qualified for those types of awards. That's in that pool. That's quite a big pool. And number 3 is the strong regional festivals that would be, for example, Tallgrass Film Festival. Ones which have
Sunscreen Film Festival comes to mind.
And the Sunscreen. I was going to say that next. That's in that group because it's just one and Sunscreen. But also ones, for example, that people know really well, like the Oak Cliff Film Festival here in Dallas, for example.
Mill Valley, ones like that.
Exactly, Mill Valley. And another one, which is one of my clients' favorite festivals, is the Cordillera Festival in Reno, Nevada. So just like has, really strong production values, really well done, great films and great networking. In number 4, I have 5 tiers. Number 4 is festivals that are just starting out, the newer ones that are building a brand and recognition and are really good. And then the final one is the scam film festivals and online film festivals, all these award competitions, which are not award competitions. They can catch you out if you're not careful. They almost did me at one point. I was like, ooh, but then you can tell which are the fishy ones because, if it's not going to be a real live festival because there's no pictures on Film Freeway of people actually being in a film festival. It's in their bedroom holding an award. It's not a film festival. So those, I just say to any film, no matter what type of quality the film is like, any filmmaker should never submit to those festivals because they're not going to do anything with the film and it actually can damage your brand. It's best to stick to that ones in the tier above, really.
Yeah, those festivals are tricky. And to explain that a little further for filmmakers, like the awards ones, like you'll go to the Film Freeway page or whatever it might be, and there's a list of like 50 awards that films can win. And you're basically just by submitting into a certain category, they'll give you an award. And so you're just paying for an award. And a lot of times they don't even have a festival. They'll say it's an online festival, but the films don't actually get screened anywhere at all. And so there's no actual festival. It's just a platform for people to send money to them. And then they just send you something saying, congratulations, you won an award. And so those are pure garbage, essentially.
It's garbage, which also means nothing.
Yeah.
Like an award for me that means something is anything in tier 1 to 4. I mean, with tier 4, they're just starting out, but if it's really good passion behind it, it's well organized and it celebrates the filmmakers and prioritizes the filmmakers, then those awards are good and it's like a good celebration. Like, for example, the one I really love is the Show Low Film Festival in Arizona. They're such a lovely festival. They treat you like a king and a queen there. But also, like, they're really passionate about it. They're producers themselves and they want to put on the festival to people to network with each other, which is great, so that's wonderful. But it's just the passion's there and, it will grow and they know they're going to make a few mistakes in the beginning and that's what you're going to do. But then putting like just a festival that's like this online festival that doesn't actually happen, doesn't exist, is the worst. There's a couple of those in Dallas, which are just run. I remember James Faust from Dallas Film Festival, like they did an experiment. They called the number on this like Dallas Film Awards or something. It was like a call center in India.
Yeah. And there are a lot of, you got to be very careful too. There are a lot of like Russian, Indian, like other countries around the world that are literally just these online scams for people to send money to, and then they don't do anything with the film at all. So always be cautious, and that's the whole point of do your research when you're looking at film festivals, and why you hire a film festival doctor to help make sure that you don't waste your money on those projects.
Exactly. It breaks my heart when I see on these online award festival things or these online awards or these award competition things, is when people are putting in the reviews like, oh, thank you so much. It's such an honor to win like best comedy short film made in China or something, like something awful. I was like, you, wow, like you think that's real? I mean, it's not good at all. It really is sad. Also, what is one of the things to look out for is if you're not sure if it is a live festival or not, is to research the website, the Instagram, and also look at the pictures on the Film Freeway page. If they are actually pictures of people at a festival. Sometimes you see pictures of like empty theaters or like nothing really happening. And it's like a couple of years in, you're like, well, there must be some pictures or something on it's a real film festival. Because that gives you proof. It's like social proofing. Like you have those pictures on Sunscreen's Film Freeway page. It's very clear that it's actually a live physical festival. You've had celebrity guests there. Everything's pretty clear that this is real and people are enjoying themselves, So, because when I went to Sunscreen, it was a lot of fun. You had Women in Film Florida. There was chicks who make flicks. I think.
A former board member has a nonprofit that she calls Chicks Making Flicks, and she does like a whole thing during the festival, based on women filmmakers. Yeah.
And it's a good location, so it's a great place to network. There's a party every night. So that's what a film festival is. In a proper theater. It's at AMC, isn't it? Sundar, I think it was. So a proper theater, not just a back door, or like in a bar. It's weird when you see these festivals that take place in a bar, because that's not a proper theater. So it's strange, and there's kind of more like movie nights, a good, little movie nights for people to watch films, but they're not a film festival. So it's just to be very vigilant of the pictures and the branding and be supported by people. I always think with reviews is to not really take reviews that seriously. Like, for example, why does Dublin Independent Film Festival that hasn't run yet have 1,000 amazing reviews when Sundance is like 9? You have to be so careful because the people can believe it's like great when it isn't or doesn't exist.
Well, so you've been doing this for a long time now, and you obviously started in the UK. How did you end up then in Dallas in 2021? So you're doing this, you're running it. London obviously is a great film city, and there's so much that happens there within the industry outside of just film festivals, and such a hub for the industry. And not that Dallas isn't, but Dallas is not London, right? And Dallas is very much growing in what it is and what it does in the industry, and has great film festivals here with Dallas International and Oak Cliff and USA Film Festival and the Asian film. I could rattle off. There's like a dozen film festivals in Dallas. There's a lot going on here as far as festivals go. And then the film industry is really growing, really starting to become something. But again, not London. So how do you end up? How do you end up in Dallas from London?
So I was beginning to feel disconnected from the UK. So I've lived there all my life. I was born and raised in the UK. I'm 42 now, 43 this year. And it was getting to the point where I was just feeling not connected. And that's a really weird feeling to have when you're not connected to your own country or where you live. You don't have a sense of grounding. And it's a little bit like you feel scattered. It's just not like, it's just a place. It doesn't become a home. It's just a place. And I was in Essex, so Essex is next door to London, and that's a beautiful part of the UK. It just wasn't it wasn't home, and it felt weird. And I was going back and forth to the USA all the time. It was going like once or twice a week. It would be sometimes for like short trips or longer trips for festivals and getting everything. I'm only going to LA, New York, but I was also going to Dallas a bit because I was dating a guy there.
That's how it all circles back.
Love brought me to Dallas, kind of. And I met him at a film festival, and when I was back and forth to the UK. So I knew it quite a bit, and I really liked the city. And then I thought to myself, maybe I should go to LA because that's where everyone is, I suppose, at that time. But it didn't work out because I had a very bad immigration issue. I couldn't get in during COVID. It was really traumatic. I didn't want to live there. So I thought, you know what? I want to live in Dallas because I know the city. The guy I was dating, it didn't work out, but I knew it and I felt safer here. And I knew it was up and coming. I loved the festivals. I've been to quite a few festivals there, like Diff and Oak Cliff once, another one I went to as well. And I met some people through some friends of mine who knew the teams at the festivals here. So I thought I can be here. I'm going to base myself here. And it was the right place to move to because I feel it's more at home now here, and this is my home. I haven't been back to the UK since 2020.
Oh, wow.
I haven't been there yet, so I've not been there. So I need to go at some point see my family because they're all based there. But yeah, so it ended up. So it's kind of like a left turn, but I thought, Dallas is a place I can base myself. It's really close to New York and LA. It's a good place to be. I know the city and I know where I'm going. So I feel like I better just start here and just figure it out. And
what are your impressions of Dallas then as a filmmaking hub, as a film center, not just for festivals, but for the industry in general, coming from London, seeing what that industry is like there, traveling around the US and around the world, with festivals and seeing, just in your time now in Dallas last, 4 or 5 years, what are your impressions?
So I do like the industry here because it's a really nice and close-knit community of people. Everyone knows each other. Everyone recommends other people. There's really good organizations like the DPA, Dallas Producers Association, obviously Dallas Film Commission. Everyone kind of helps out, chips in. Everyone knows, good connections, and it's a really creative place. A lot of filmmakers I work with here that are really strong. So I was really impressed with the talent. So it's a lot different to London, because London is obviously a bigger city, different kind of infrastructure. And also Dallas is very different to the UK. Obviously in London, it's a very different kind of city. People are surprised I'm not in Miami or LA or New York, 'cause that's where British people emigrate.
Yeah.
But they say, oh, you're in Dallas, it's like, oh, that's the, I want to be there. You need to be somewhere that's like, somewhere that's more like a better state than that, just because I don't know Dallas. But it is different. So I find that the festivals here, you got that nice community feel, you got that nice friendly vibe, and like very good hospitality. In some other festivals, like you're in LA and New York, can be a bit fragmented.
Speaking of fragmented,
because it's very spread out, but here it's less spread out as, say, New York and LA. And London is a big city. It's not quite as big as here, but it does have those spread out parts. But you do tend to see the same people at events after you live there for a while. But here it's just a little bit more intimate, which I think is a really nice kind of vibe. And getting all the stuff I want to get done here and like talk about people what I do has been a bit easier than doing that for years and years in London.
Yeah. And so now you're 15 years or so into the company. How many staff do you have? Like how many people do you have working for you? It's you and, how many? I know you have your hands in everything and work a ton of hours, but what does your team look like?
So the core team of 4 people. So it's me, Sheila, Lauren, and Darren. So I would delegate everything I need to them. And I also got my accountant and lawyer who are in the background, which is also good. And I've got Nicole, who has worked with me. Actually, she does a kind of a lot of special projects that are like different kind of things we're going to do with the brand, because she's a good producer. She's been with me since day one, literally since 2011. And she's seen the brand grow and helped me grow it. And her wisdom's been great. So I've always been grateful for her since day one, because she's helped shape the business quite a bit.
Yeah, good. Well, that's amazing. And so if someone wants to bring you on or bring the Film Festival Doctor team on board because you've got a film, whether it's a feature or short or whatever it might be, what does that look like? What's that step-by-step process on how does that work?
So the best thing to do is just send me the link to view the film. We do all different types of products. We do shorts and features, fiction, non-fiction. We also do episodics, web series. We do branded content, podcasts, and produce screenplays, music videos, the whole lot. Whatever it is, send it over, and then we'll assess it. And if it's something we can work on, we'll then talk about next steps and what help the services we offer and how much it is, and how far the film can go on the circuit, and if it can help the filmmaker achieve their goals. Yeah,
and you imagine you've got different levels. Like filmmaker wants to do like the full out crazy package to maximize as much as possible. There's that one all the way down to whatever works in your budget range, for different levels for filmmakers.
Absolutely. So we have consultancies, which are one-to-one sessions, and we give them the roadmap and the strategy. Then we have managed packages where we do all the work for them. So we can do the submissions, lobbying, and organize all the festival screenings. It's right from top to bottom. So there's a big choice. Actually, I think there's a package for every single budget now.
Yeah.
Back in the day, it was like one did everything. And now it's like a lot more structured, thanks to having a business consultants come on board to help with that and to not have to do everything and package it differently, which I learned a lot from.
Yeah, and that makes a lot more sense, because somebody, if you've got this little short film that you didn't spend a lot of money on, you don't necessarily want to spend a ton of money on having you do all the work to do all the submissions, everything. It's like, well, how about just consult with me and tell me what I need to do, and I'll go do it myself.
Exactly.
Whereas you might have somebody who made a documentary. I'm thinking specifically of the Racing for Recovery documentary that made a great documentary with a great story, but not a filmmaker, doesn't know anything about filmmaking, has a team that made it, and they just need someone to help them get it out there. And so then you can handle soup to nuts, them getting that project out there and, take that off their plate, and they do what, you do what you need to do, essentially.
Exactly. They're great. And because you gave me that referral a while ago, and then it circled back with the new film, which is really good. And it's won now 3 awards in the festival circuit so far. And it's doing quite well. And it's got another festival coming up in a few weeks' time. So it's really good. And it's a good piece of work. Yes. Also, what we do offer as well as a separate service is Oscar submission and management. Yeah.
No, we didn't talk about that at all. So let's cover that before we wrap up. That's kind of a big deal.
Yes. So a lot of filmmakers need help completing and managing their Oscar submission, because there's 2 different ways you can submit to the Oscars. One is winning an award at a festival that's Oscar qualified, or doing a release in a theater for 7 days, a 4-wall in one of the 6 qualifying cities. So we can take care of that as well. That is a very time-consuming application.
Yeah.
It's not like a Film Freeway in 2-minute kind of job. It probably takes about a month to prepare it all and get what they need and then submit. It's quite a lot of work.
Yeah. And there's actually an earlier episode of the Dallas Film Podcast where we, at the Texas Theater, go into in-depth on the whole process of submitting to, getting an Oscar qualified film. So if anybody is interested in that particular one, that will be linked in this episode so they can go back and watch that episode that dials directly into this.
Exactly. That's a good promo. It's also on a podcast page on my website too.
Perfect.
But yes, absolutely. The Oscars actually is great because Dallas-Fort Worth has just become a Oscar qualifying city, and the Dallas National Film Festival, DIF, has become a qualifying film festival.
I know. So what a great double dose right there for that to happen for Dallas, for the city, and then for Dallas International. So talk about the difference between those two, right? So for Dallas International Film Festival, what that means is if you have a short film that wins an award at Dallas International, it then qualifies. It's not qualified for the Oscars, but it goes into potential Oscar as a qualifying short film. Is that correct?
Partly, yes. So DIF is now a qualifying film festival for short films. So if you win one of their 3 Oscar qualifying awards, which is the Grand Jury Prize for Best Narrative Short, i.e. live action, Best Animation Short Grand Jury Prize, or Best Documentary Short Grand Jury Prize, you can then submit your film to the Oscars. No guarantees it'll get nominated, but you can submit. You become eligible to submit. So let's say if you don't win one of those awards, or you've got a feature, because feature films, there's no award you can win apart from documentary features, and then about 32 festivals around the rest of the world that offer that award. So if you've got a narrative fiction or an animated feature, or you don't win any of those prizes, or you've got a documentary feature that needs to do a release, you can then qualify by doing a 7-day, week-long screening in a theater that is also qualified in a qualifying city.
And which Dallas now happens to be one of 6 cities that is an Oscar qualifying city.
Yes.
So New York, LA, Dallas, what are the other 3 cities?
Atlanta, Chicago, and the Bay Area.
As in San Francisco?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because Tampa Bay,
yeah. Not yet.
Not yet.
Well, Dallas replaced Miami as a qualifying city in April 24.
Not to put Miami down, but
we did, which was great. So my goal is to really keep it a qualifying city because it's a very important thing for us all to have of that status. Because when we got qualified in April and the news was announced very under the radar, DIF then completed the application once again to qualify to be a qualifying festival, and it got it in October last year. So it was a double whammy in 24. It was brilliant for the city and for the festival.
It makes a lot. It makes a lot of sense, and I think for maybe a little background color for people, one of the reasons that Dallas became an Oscar qualifying city, and maybe Miami was taken off the list, is because Dallas is one of the top film attending cities in the country. So as far as people going to the theaters, Dallas is one of the top cities in the country. So if there's a film release happening and a studio or whoever's doing only a 10-city theatrical run or whatever it might be, Dallas is always one of those cities because it's one of the top cities in the country as far as people attending films in theaters. And so that, I think, is probably one of the reasons why Dallas then became an Oscar qualifying city. And so for the purposes of, let's say you've got a feature film or a feature documentary and you talk about four-walling, what someone does is they go and they rent a theater. They're going to rent, let's say, Texas Theater for a week. So you're doing a 7-day rental, Texas Theater for a week, and you have to have the film screen how many times per day for that 7 days in order for it to be Oscar qualifying?
Yes. That would make sense then, because I didn't know that. I know Miami is a very different type of city for that kind of thing. So that would make sense why Dallas probably replaced it. But yeah, very cool.
Well, great. Well, we had it looks like a little technical hiccup there.
I'm back.
Okay, now you're back. Well, great. Well, Rebekah, thank you so much for coming on the Dallas Film Podcast, presented by Southside Studios Dallas today. I'm gonna have to get used to saying that now. That longer title, but it's all good. I'm happy to do it, and we're excited to have you here in Dallas, promoting the city and promoting the area, and doing everything that you do for filmmakers. Any closing words before we wrap up?
Yes, I think the golden rule to show filmmakers is remember to always have a festival strategy that contains the right kinds of festivals for your film is a key one. And follow me on Instagram at Rebekah Film Doctor.
Rebekah with a K, correct?
RebekahFilmDr.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Looking forward to me being on your podcast next.
Yes. See you later.
All right, we'll see you later. Bye.